Welcome to the FounderVideo podcast, an interview series bringing you the latest and greatest info on B2B marketing, revenue operations, and go-to-market strategy from respected experts. Here is your host, Will Martin.
All right, so we're here with JD Garcia, Head of Strategy at Impactable. We're here to talk about LinkedIn ads, how to run them properly, strategies, bids, technicalities, and whatnot. But yeah, it's a pleasure to have you, JD.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Will. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So the first question that I've been asking to all of the guests at the FounderVideo podcast is, who is, in your case, JD Garcia or Jonathan? What do people need to know about your past in order to understand who you are today as a professional?
So I've never done marketing before. So this is my first foray into marketing. I've mainly done sales jobs, everything from timeshare to home health, hospice, to selling movie passes. If you remember Blockbuster or Hollywood Video at all, if you're old enough to remember those. But yeah, I've always done sales. I kind of stumbled into marketing as a side hustle. So Justin Rowe, founder, was looking for someone to help him do some LinkedIn outreach, just some management. I did it just kind of as a side hustle, and then started making some pretty decent money, and then slowly just kind of got more and more engrossed. But me as a professional today, there's a lot of soft skills and skills I picked up that transposed really well into this one. But for LinkedIn ads or really anything, you get better at what you practice. So I've just chosen this discipline, and I've spent hundreds of hours, maybe, I don't know, thousands would be, probably thousands, maybe thousands of hours inside Campaign Manager. So a lot of what I've learned has just been through trial and error. But yeah, just a little bit about me.
Awesome, because you started working with Justin then, how long ago?
In April, it will be, I think, 5 years.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. And so, everyone must know already, right? Head of strategy, but what does a head of strategy do actually, right? Tell us about your day-to-day.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because when you're a startup or and you just kind of wear a thousand different hats, which I still do, the titles that we have are not pretty little defined ones where it's oh, this is your job title, so you do these things. Un poquito de todo. I do a little bit of everything here. I manage the sales team. I help set strategy for clients that are coming on board. I manage a book of business. I do training and development for people at Impactable. I order office supplies for our home office. Put out fires. I help with some automation. So Zapier, do stuff with HubSpot automation. So I do a little bit of everything, but really if I decide to find my job really well, I help decide and help set strategy for people we choose to work with. So I'm kind of a little bit of a gatekeeper just to make sure that we're working with the right types of clients and that we're working with people who have a good chance of succeeding.
Awesome. Touching on that note, I'm aware that you audit, and everyone who follows you on LinkedIn is probably aware too, that you audit a lot of accounts, LinkedIn ad accounts every month, probably thousands. What are the top 5 most common mistakes? And you were talking about being a gatekeeper too, right? Selecting what accounts do you guys want to work with? What are the top mistakes that you see the companies make when taking a look at their campaign managers configuration?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a few different buckets. So I guess what I'll do is I'll talk about the buckets of mistakes because you can kind of group them together. The biggest one, and the analogy I use is kind of you want to take a trip somewhere, you want to drive somewhere, you're going to go on vacation somewhere. First thing you need is your car needs to be working. You need gas, your tire pressure needs to be good, check the oil, windshield wipers, right? So the first mistake people make is that their car is broken down. So it's technical things. They have audience expansion enabled. They have audience network enabled. They're using a website conversion objective to drive website traffic. They don't have their insights tag installed. They're not using the correct and or targeting criteria. They're not using their matched audiences. They haven't created their matched audiences. There are the black and white things. It's not like you need a like a degree to figure this stuff out. Like your car needs gas. It's black and white. You need gas. You don't have gas. You're not going anywhere. You need an oil change. Like you need these things in place. And those are kind of like the first bucket. It's like the technical things that you're doing incorrectly. That like for everybody, they're pretty easy to fix. But that's the most common one I see is the technical issues. The car's not working right. The second issue is around like the actual strategy. So like strategy would be like the map. So you're like, I need to go from destination A to destination B, but you're driving the wrong direction. Like you're going the opposite way. So like you don't have an actual roadmap laid out that gives you kind of the path that you need to get where you need to go. So even if your car is running fine, you have a full tank of gas, you have a bunch of budget, you're not going to get where you're trying to go if you're not driving the right direction. So the second bucket is that strategy part. And the last bucket is it's more subjective. Like it's more about expectations. If I know I'm driving somewhere and I know it's going to take me an hour and a half to get there, like I'm okay when it's been 30 minutes, when it's been 45 minutes, when it's been an hour and 15 minutes. If I'm driving somewhere and I have no idea how long it's going to take me to get there, every minute, every mile feels like an eternity. Like, I don't know. I know it's supposed to be somewhere. I'm looking, I'm driving. I'm trying to see, like, did I miss my exit? Do I need to keep going? Do I need to turn around? That uncertainty makes it really hard for you to stay true to your course. So it's really around those expectations, because I've audited accounts. I've come in with people that had like unrealistic expectations for what LinkedIn was supposed to do. And maybe they could have been successful if they had a better perspective of what success looked like. Like you had a half a tank of gas and you wanted to drive 500 miles, like you were never going to get there. But if you made it, 200 miles or something, like that's successful. Like you got what what we're supposed to get with what you had. So I'd say those three buckets are probably the biggest, mistakes I see. And it's large, but those are the three biggest ones.
Yeah, it is indeed. Yeah. The technicalities, I mean, I'm sure that most people that are listening to the podcast already know about this, but let's touch on real quick when you mentioned all of the configuration, right? Like the LinkedIn audience network, LinkedIn expansion, matched audiences, all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. Why is it so black and white? And why is it? Because someone might argue, well, I had some decent result and I turned this on and I heard that this person had this on, and why it's so rigid and we have to be so meticulous about it.
Yeah. Like what works, like there's some things that may work for somebody. Like I like to eat meat. My wife really likes salad. Like if I just said, hey, we're both going to eat meat, we're both going to just eat salad, like one of us would be really, really sad. I would probably be more sad because I really don't like salad. And then there's other things that like, hey, everybody should do. Like, hey, we should all probably go for a walk, 20 minutes a day. Like, that's not something that's so crazy to say. So that's the same thing with like audience expansion, audience network, creating matched audiences. These are things that like, if you really like have a conversation about them or you research them, it's pretty obvious that these are things that you should just do. Like where it's not really open for debate. Some of the other things that are debatable are around like, say, like campaign objective selection or bidding strategy. Because even though I've audited a bunch of accounts and I've talked to, thousands of people, like there are similarities between companies and offers and goals, but there's no two that are exactly the same. Everyone has a little bit of a difference. So like understanding the different levers that you can pull will help you make better decisions. But like about like prescriptive decisions, like what a doctor might do, like a good doctor might do, will help you make better decisions. But some of these technical things, again, audience network, creating retargeting audiences, like, come on, man, like people went to your website. They clicked on your ad, whatever, or they wound up on your site and they meet your ICP criteria. And you're just like, we don't need to market to those people. Let's just go, let's keep spending money, just showing up to strangers. And that'll work, that'll work really well. Like it just, it doesn't. And I can rant on this for a long time, so we don't have to stay here.
No, for sure. But you mentioned something super interesting because you did the analogy with driving and gas, and like, well, you had like X amount of liters of gas in your tank, and you thought you could drive like 500 miles. Well, probably of course you won't be able to, right? So when you audit those accounts, what are those expectations, unrealistic expectations that companies have with their LinkedIn ad accounts with specific budgets? Can you be more specific with that? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can. You have a product, enterprise SaaS product that is a $500,000 deal size, and you want to spend $2,000 a month to test LinkedIn and see if you can start getting some results. Like, what results? Like, what do you think? Like, you're going to spend $2,000 and I don't know, what's the quick math? Like, have a 1 to 1,000% ROAS? Like, you're going to get a deal off of that? Like, it's not realistic. Like, think about how you buy stuff, right? As like a B2B person, like you're running a business. Do you see an ad and you're just like, I'm going to stop everything I'm doing and go sign up for this because I need this right now? That's not how people work. Like they don't work like that. B2B prospects are not impulse decision makers. At least most of the market isn't, right? You may get lucky from time to time. And this is something that I talk about. Like you may get lucky from time to time, but it's not predictable. And what you want for LinkedIn is you want to get to a point where you have predictable lead flow that's going to come through. You know that you're going to get between this and this amount of leads, MQLs. You'll know you'll convert so many of those into opportunities, and you'll know you'll convert so many of those opportunities into revenue. And that at the end of the day, it ends up being, in the black for you. You end up being a positive ROI. But you need that level of predictability. And you're really not able to get that with smaller budgets. So like in terms of like what expectations are, right? If you're expecting to sell something that is, let's say, a $20,000 product, and you want to spend $500 a month or $1,000 a month on LinkedIn, you're expecting it to do that. It's not going to happen for you. Now, I make the argument that if your prospects are on LinkedIn and you actually have product market fit, and you have a good way to convert leads into revenue, then you should be marketing on LinkedIn no matter what. But it's just a matter of the degree that you can invest, because not all companies have a bunch of budget. Like solopreneurs, startups, some of the ones that have grown through, let's say, founder-led growth or word of mouth or through LinkedIn Organic, they may not have the capital to invest into marketing to do like a full kind of build out a funnel to start generating leads, but they should at the very least have a presence on there. So maybe that's $500 a month that you're going to spend. You're going to take some of your content, you're going to retarget people that visit your website, your company page, and you're going to do that, but you're not expecting it to perform miracles for you. The expectations are realistic. So yeah, whenever, like, sometimes I get asked, like, what's a good budget for LinkedIn? A good budget for LinkedIn is whatever you can spend without losing sleep at night. That's a good budget for LinkedIn. The next thing is around expectations. Like, what do you want to happen? What do you need to happen? Is there pressure on you to grow because you just did a round of funding and you need to be aggressive? Okay, well, you're going to need to spend more in order to do that. Are you trying to build out another channel? Outbound's working for you. You're thinking about building out another channel because things have kind of fluctuated and you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. Like, okay, there's a certain budget you want to allocate towards that. So there's not a number, I would say. It's more about what you're expecting, because $500 is fine if your expectations are, very modest. At the same token, like $50,000 isn't fine if you're expecting to close deals when you have a 6-month sales cycle, or you're expecting it to just do something magical. Like, it's not. It's more about expectations.
Love that.
This podcast is brought to you by FounderVideo. We'll cut your LinkedIn ads costs by at least 50% with natural-looking creatives that prospects actually want to consume. Just have an expert in your C-suite show up to a 90-minute interview once a month and let us take care of the rest. Turn LinkedIn ads from an accepted line item expense into a scalable revenue channel that fits into your go-to-market strategy. Book a free consultation at foundervideo.io.
What would you say is the just to close off that chapter, what would you say is the average ratio that people should be expecting from LinkedIn in terms of ROAS? Like, because you mentioned, like, of course, if you're spending like $2,000, you're not going to close a $500,000 deal, right? And then the timeline again also affects a lot, because LinkedIn is also a platform in which a lot of users are not as active. However, I would say that in B2B, SaaS for enterprise and whatnot is kind of like one of the niches in which it makes the most sense, at least in North America. But what would you say to that?
Yeah. Another one, like it depends. It depends on your business. Like your initial offer may just put you at break even, but then you have an opportunity to upsell and retain more revenue on the back end. Like one of the guys I've worked with this guy for almost 2 years now. I'll probably never stop working with him. Like we'll get really large and I'll probably have like 3 accounts that I just stay with because I really like them a lot. But they have 100% retention rate for their B2B SaaS tool. So for them, they actually don't mind losing money to acquire a client because they know they're going to recoup that investment like, 3, 4, 5x on the back end because they're going to retain every single one of their clients. So it's more of a calculation that you need to do. Like whatever it ends up being, you need to end up in the black. Like you at least need to make this profitable for you. There's other things that you can leverage this for that are not as tangible, like helping to accelerate deal velocity or helping with cross-selling with your client base. So there's other things that you can do besides just new client acquisition. But I would say it varies. Like as long as you're in the black, great. But if you don't have great retention or you don't have an ability to keep clients, then you have a bigger problem in your hands than marketing.
100%. That's a good, because a lot of companies might think that, if I go on LinkedIn and I, start spending this, we can solve PMF, right? Like not the way it works.
Yeah, that'd be an expensive exercise.
Right on. And that's how, LinkedIn makes their money off of that, right? So it's not like they're going to stop you.
No.
You mentioned sales velocity and accelerating the sales cycles and whatnot. Do you guys do something like get into those processes at Impactable in order to make the LinkedIn ads campaigns work better? And if so, how?
Yeah. So there's a few things that need to be in place for that. Like one, there needs to be enough budget to peel off a portion of it to allocate there. And then 2, you need buy-in from leadership on that to be able to pull some of that budget off for that. And the easiest way I found is if they have HubSpot, just creating that dynamic audience where you can take companies that are associated with deals, active deals in pipeline, and then you can target other stakeholders at those companies. And usually the cost is nominal. Like, I might run, because I'm not expecting them to do anything. I don't really want them to do anything. I just want to expose them. I might run, let's say, like a brand awareness campaign to them and just do a manual CPM bid and then target other stakeholders or influencers. Depending on the size of the company, I want people that are 1 to 2 degrees removed from the actual decision makers. I want that company's name shown a bunch of times so that when it finally gets to the point where they're going to make a decision on, let's say, a vendor or picking a partner, everyone that's involved in that or people that are involved in that are already familiar with that company's brand. So for me, it's one of the things that it's harder to track because they need to have benchmarks, they need to have baselines, they need to have the tracking to show a lift in that. But it's something that makes sense to me. And that's one of the things that I try to talk to people about. Like, I saw someone post about this today. I can't remember who it was. But there's the things that you can black and white prove. And then there's the things that just make sense to do that are less tangible. Like, to me, it makes sense if I have a $20,000 budget to spend $1,500 a month targeting other stakeholders or other influencers at deals that are currently in my pipeline. Like, even if I don't get something like specific from that, like it just makes sense for me to help improve that. So that's why I was saying, like, one of the things you need to have besides the budget is the buy-in from leadership on that, because a lot of times what I run into is that they want black and white, this lead gen form or this ad resulted in this deal, and that's just not it. That's not how it works.
What do you think of that? Now that you mentioned the lead gen forms and attribution and whatnot, what do you think that says about the current state of B2B buying and B2B sales?
Yeah, I mean, like I get it. I understand. I get where they're coming from. So if you're responsible for the company's financial success and you're looking at ways where you can reduce costs, like, marketing seems pretty easy. Like, hey, these things aren't performing. Let's stop spending money there, and then let's still reduce what it costs to generate a lead. Like, I understand I understand where they're coming from. And that's a reason why a lot of companies will use lead gen form, because it's a one-to-one relationship. You fill out the lead gen form. I have this person's information that gets pulled into my CRM. This deal is moving through pipeline. You can track it, all the way through the funnel. The challenge is that's just not how everybody raises their hand. A lot of times what happens is people will be exposed to content for a while. Something will come up, something will change in their organization, or there's something gets elevated as a pain point. They remember this company, they hop over to Google, look them up, go on the site, and then sign up for something. And then Google gets the credit for it. LinkedIn doesn't get the credit for it because it wasn't within the time window, or they didn't, let's say, click directly on it, and maybe conversion tracking wasn't set up, so they don't have the full picture. So it, like, for attribution, it makes it really, really hard. But that's part of the conversation I have pretty often, is trying to justify the spend for LinkedIn. And obviously I'm biased, you're biased, right? We run LinkedIn campaigns. So of course we're going to say LinkedIn's a good channel for you, right? But that's where some of the things like the revenue attribution tool that LinkedIn has now with the integration with Salesforce is pretty cool, because it'll show you some of that data. And since LinkedIn obscures data, is big on user privacy, and they don't actually show you the conversions like something like StackAdapt would, where you actually see the data for the individual. You don't get that level of granularity. The offline conversions are good. The API is good. So LinkedIn's getting a little bit better about some of this stuff, but it's still a challenge. That conversation is still a tough one to have.
For sure, yeah. We'll try to bring in someone from Hockey Stack to talk about this more in depth, because I think, they are it's such a challenge in B2B these days, and I am excited to see what's coming up with LinkedIn APIs and how we're going to be able to get more data on that, because it's not only about justifying LinkedIn ad spend, it's more so about understanding the full buyer's journey, right? And actually having the big picture of all of the touch points. And sure, it gets harder and harder, because I think not even the buyers themselves know what their journey has been in a lot of cases, right? It's just, there's so much out there that it's hard. And we're coming back to the common sense, what you said before, right? For me, it just makes sense to spend, if I have a $20,000 a month budget on LinkedIn ads, to spend $1,500 in stakeholders that are in active pipeline deals. Of course, right? It's just common sense and human. And I think if leadership doesn't understand that, they are just way too deep into the metrics, and they should be looking outwards a little bit, but that's not my game. So either way,
I was going to say, have that conversation. Let me know how that goes.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not that easy, but moving on though, when training LinkedIn ads managers, right? Because you've mentioned that you do development for people in Impactable and whatnot, and training, what are the key areas that you focus on to make sure they're up to par?
Yeah. So, it's not entirely my job. So we have a pretty good team here. So Joshua Stout, he's our head of operations. And then Tina, she helps with a lot of the training, but the way I see it, there's two parts to this. So there's part A, which is understanding all of the different levers that you can pull. So how do you do targeting? How are the technical things? What are all the things that you can configure within LinkedIn? And then the second part, and the really important part, is not how to run campaigns, but how to think about running campaigns. Because that's where, at least when I have conversations with people, and I help my sales team and we have conversations with prospects, that's where I feel like they get a lot of value out of the conversation. It's not this okay, you want to target this person, you want to target this offer, this is the thing. Okay, we would build this. Let's talk about the actual strategy. Who's the actual champion within the organization? Is that the person that's going to be the point of entry for you? Okay, if they're not horizontal because you're targeting different verticals, what are all the different ones that we suspect? Okay, understanding all these variables and then thinking about the best way for us to architect this and get a good start on LinkedIn. Because this, it's really, really easy to spend a lot of money on LinkedIn. That's not a problem. LinkedIn will take your money happily. No apologies. The hard part is figuring out like the best kind of starting point and then determining what the tests are going to look like for you. Because you want to get feedback pretty quickly and you want to make informed decisions and informed pivots pretty quickly. So it's that. So when we're training account managers, we're training people impactable. It's not a, hey, this client is doing this. What do you recommend that they do? It's, well, what do you think they should do? And it's helping ask questions that get them to think. Like, okay, well, let's take a look at the assets here. Like, is there anything here that stands out to you? Okay, great. This one's performing best. Like, why do you think this one's performing better compared to the other ones? So it's like, I have a training background. I did sales training for about 5 years at a telecommunications company. So I did a lot of that development. It's actually one of my favorite things to do is to train and develop people. And people don't learn by you telling them stuff. They learn by doing things. And a good trainer or a good person that's developed them will ask the right questions to help that person form like the neural pathway in their own head for it to make sense. And so that's what I try to do with people. And, it's worked pretty well so far.
Love that. Yeah. You build their own reasoning so that they understand it in their own terms. And that way it becomes knowledge, not just info, right? Yeah. Love that, man.
Yeah. Like yesterday, Hannah on my team, we had our coaching. And she had a call with this company that does critical infrastructure management for, let's say, like data centers and co-location centers. And I was explaining what co-location was. Like you basically bring your servers or your computers to this central place and other people manage the kind of infrastructure for you. And I was using it as an example of like an RV, like you take your RV somewhere and people like will cover it. But she's an artist. So she used the analogy of like, oh, so it's like when like really rich people take their art to like Switzerland and then it's maintained and a safeguard for them. So like I was trying to give an analogy that made sense to me. She had an analogy that made sense to her with her background. And now she has that connection in her head. So yes, like people need to form their own ways to like tie this to something that they already know.
Yeah. I love how you put it. You use the word neural pathways. And I think that's completely it. Like connecting the dots by themselves. Love that. Having worked with so many different clients at Impactable, and of course we mentioned the audits as well and whatnot, what do you identify as the key common characteristics of the companies that benefit the most from LinkedIn ads?
Yeah. So there's 5. I have a lot, like I number stuff just because like it's easier for people to remember things. And like, I told you before we started recording, I have a bunch of kids, so I have to do this when I am talking to them too. But there's 5 key things that I see, that if companies have these, they tend to do pretty well on LinkedIn. And when I first started, I thought it was like, well, maybe these industries or like these offers and stuff, but I've moved away from that now. And I kind of look at these things, which are a little bit broader. But like number one, you have an audience that is on LinkedIn, somewhat active. They don't have to be super active. There's some these like little niche industries that actually do really, really well. Like maritime's one that just kills on LinkedIn. They do really well. But you need to have an audience that's identifiable on LinkedIn, somewhat active, and you're able to actually find them. So that could be using native filters. That could be a account upload list, like combined with native filters, but you need to be able to find them and they need to be like active on there. Like if you're targeting cardiologists in, Texas, like there's not going to be a whole lot of them there. And I don't know how active they are on the platform. Maybe their office managers are a little bit more active, but they're not really active. So that's number one. Number two is like, you need PMF. Like if you're a startup and you're like, hey, we're going to go to market. We want to start putting some budget behind this. We don't know if this is actually a fit, but we want to test it. That's going to be a really expensive exercise to try to determine that. You can do it. And this will go along with one of the other criteria I look like, which is expectations. And we've talked about that, but I'll summarize that again. But you can do it, but it's going to be a little bit expensive. So ideally, you already have product market fit. You're either in an industry or you're selling something that's already established, or you have something that's novel, but you've already determined that, hey, this is a good fit for this audience. So that's 2. Number 3 is they actually need to be able to convert those leads into something. So like if I send someone to a crappy website, which I've had to do sometimes, or ask them for a landing page or something, like it sucks. Like you can have the best strategy for LinkedIn, but if you don't actually have a way to turn that into an actual lead, to turn that into pipeline, then you're not going to get very far with this, with this at all. The fourth one is having, I'm trying to go blank here. I think there's a fourth one. Pretty sure there's a fourth one.
If you want me to help you on that, can you give examples on that? Because it's easy to say, like, of course, landings, like, it's not good if you just have a siloed landing that is kind of trash, or like doesn't have a clear user experience optimized, whatever. You need a way in order to convert all of that good traffic that's been nurtured on LinkedIn to put it into pipeline, make it active, and most importantly, close on revenue after all, which involves processes, involves follow-ups, involves all that stuff, right? So what do you see as the main kind of like things in common? Like when you look at a company and say, okay, well, they have, sure, they may have a couple of SDRs, but they're operating in this way, and I've had bad experiences with this. Like, I know that it's not the way you should be approaching it. Like, what do you identify as kind of like, okay, this would be the best fit, and I know these guys are going to convert this into revenue and in the least amount of time possible? Yeah.
Usually it's best if they've already have other channels that are like performing. So if they're running Google ads right now and they're using landing page and they're taking those and converting those into leads, then that's great. Now we just need to get another channel pointing to a version of what's already working, because that's already been established. The ones that are tough is where this is their first foray into marketing and they've never had to do any of this stuff before. And the only thing they have on their website is a contact us page that asks for their name, email, and a comment. Like those are tough, because now you're asking this person who has a need for leads. Otherwise they wouldn't have reached out. They wouldn't be looking at LinkedIn marketing. You have this person that now has a much heavier lift. Like, your website really isn't designed to take this traffic that's going to be generated from LinkedIn and turn it into anything like meaningful. Also, the last time you updated your website, it looks like, 8 years ago or something. Those are tough. I haven't had very many scenarios where people were able to convert leads into pipeline and then the sales team just wasn't able to close them. I haven't really had a whole lot of that. Mainly it's been that where they can't get them to the point to actually convert, to get to a salesperson.
Yeah, makes sense. Right. If you have a process, like it should be, it's no. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, interesting. It's interesting coming from you. Go ahead.
Well, the last thing I was going to say was just the number 5, I guess, maybe 4, I don't remember, but was just like expectations. Like that's the thing. If someone comes like and they hop on the call and they're like, hey, how much do I need to spend to get 30 leads this month? I'm just like, we need to pump the brakes, bud. Like, this isn't that. Like, it'd be like, I don't know, someone going to the gym and they walk up to one of the trainers and be like, what do I have to do this month to drop 30 pounds? Like, I don't know, stop eating, right? That's one. Not really healthy for you, but it's not that. Like, it's not like outbound. I can just go and start dialing for dollars and start generating stuff right away. It's a different tool, right? So depending on what expectations are, if they want something that I know isn't necessarily a great fit for LinkedIn, or like they don't even have a company page, they need to create a company page. Whoever I'm talking to, no one in their company is active on LinkedIn, and they're in a super saturated market and they can't tell me a particular like subsection of that market that they work with. Like, we're trying to ice skate uphill right now. Like, this ain't going to work, right? You're telling me your target market is small business owners in the US. Like, that's everybody. Like, your target is, millions of people. Like, that's not going to work. So expectations is the one that kind of trumps everything. Because let's say I'm talking to somebody that's not active on LinkedIn. They don't have a company page. They were working a corporate job, but they decided to kind of branch off on their own, and they want to start building a presence on LinkedIn because they know that's where their people are at. All right, cool. Like, we're looking at this as like a 6 month to a year, like, foundation laying. And if they're cool with that, then great. Like, we can work together. Like, this is fine. We can do that, but it's really about expectations.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you should be fine with it too, because I think it's just once you master it, or once you actually build your foundations on LinkedIn, then it's going to be hard for you to get the same kind of like quality, precise, targeted traffic from other platforms. And if you do things right, it shouldn't be that expensive either. But you need to go through those, you mentioned 6 months to a year of foundational levels in which, you got to build yourself up and have some strategies in place and whatnot, and then move up from there, right? How do you see video content performing on LinkedIn compared to other content types, and what creative approaches have you found to be scroll stoppers?
So video is just like another tool for me. I don't want to say I hate, but I dislike when I want to use video in a campaign and the person I'm working with says like, oh, we have this video that we use on our website or that we put together, and it's like this 2-minute horizontal ad or a video. I'm like, I don't want to use that. Like I don't want to use that. Like no one's gonna watch this. The majority of the impressions are gonna be on mobile, so your little video is gonna come up. It's not gonna look great, and then it's 2 minutes. So even to get to 25% viewed, so I can retarget people need to stop for 30 seconds. Like people's attention spans. I mean, LinkedIn's a little bit better. It's not like TikTok, but like people's attention spans aren't that long. And if this is a video you just want to throw together because I'm asking you for a video, like let's just not use that. And then getting people to produce video, like new video content, is a much bigger lift than getting new image assets created. Video is just tougher. I like using video. What I've actually seen work is more of like authentic like content. So like someone recording themselves on their iPhone talking, like not some like in a studio, super fancy, super polished, like raw, like kind of messy, like not perfect. Like that video content seems to, at least from my experience, seems to get better engagement than like really polished, like corporate-y type video content. The challenge I have with that is not everybody likes being in front of a camera. There's a lot of camera shy people. And so sometimes like asking someone like, hey, can we get, a 30-second clip of like, I don't know, someone who's a technical manager, someone who's not sales or marketing. Like, let's get someone who's not sales or marketing, or like the CEO or something, like in front of a camera talking about these things, because they're going to be better received than someone that's like sales or marketing that's talking about some of them. But people are kind of camera shy. But those video formats, those videos work pretty well. Things you want to have subtitles. Don't do the SRT file and let LinkedIn do subtitles for you. Do your own subtitles.
Good advice right there. Yeah. Do your square or your vertical format, and then keep it short and sweet, especially in your cold layer. Like no one's gonna watch your 4-minute video in your cold layer. No, they're not gonna do. I know you think it's great. I know you're giving away this awesome content. No one's gonna watch it. Like no one's gonna watch it enough for you to actually do something. You can run longer content in your retargeting layer because your ad frequency is going to get higher, so you'll get more opportunities to show that content to people. So you're not relying just on that one time or 2 times for them to actually see it. But you need to keep it short and sweet in your cold, and then you can do a little bit longer in retargeting. Longer in retargeting, but not in cold. I've seen that from experience too. Like having to run a 2.5-minute video to a cold audience is like, and the worst part of it all is that you don't get to build your retargeting audience. That's the worst thing, because it compounds. It's not like, oh, we're losing the budget on this call. It's like we're not being able to then spend on a big enough retargeting audience that's going to give us an actual lower cost, right? So second order of consequence right there. Thought leader ads. Let's talk about this new ad. Well, new. It's been around for like 6 months now, but or a little bit more than that, right? Like 7 or 8 months now. Thought leader ads. But yeah,
something. Yeah.
Tell us about your experience with them, and how do you find them so far?
Yeah, so I really like thought leader ads. So like we're still kind of like in the honeymoon phase right now, where like they're new and they're sexy and they massage your feet at night, but we're eventually going to move out of that phase. It'll start becoming more common. Like I think I saw Verizon running thought leadership ads. I was like, okay, now it's becoming like more mainstream. But the leadership ads are great. Like, it's a really good way for you to personalize, like, and humanize your brand and to get more engagement, which can also be a downside. So like when thought leadership ads first came out, we were running them in our code layer, and then we were building out the single image ad interaction because you could only run it as brand awareness or engagement. So you really can't build different matched audiences for single image ad interactions and chargeable clicks because they're the same thing for that asset. But we were using them to fill out our retargeting layers. And because the cost per engagement was like stupid cheap, it was like, I don't know, 12 cents or 30 cents or 40 cents. Because it was so low, it was flooding the retargeting layer, and it was actually diluting the performance in there, because now you had people that were just curious enough to click see more being mixed with people that had also visited your website. And like, okay, now I'm mixing these and I'm not getting in front of the people that actually took a stronger action. So yeah, they're great. You can use them in your code layer. Maybe don't build a retargeting audience for them, or maybe like segment them. So like in your core campaigns where you're focused more on getting some type of action, maybe don't include people that click see more in that group. You can run maybe like a separate campaign for them. But they do really, really well. I'll tell you how we use them for ourselves. I did a post a while back where I offered to do like free audits for people. Justin took that post and then like started putting money behind it. I put like a few thousand, and I got, I don't know, my DMs got blown up, but I got like, I don't know, 50 plus different people reach out to us for audits, like big ones, small ones. And a few of those are our clients now. I don't know what the ROAS on it was, but it was really, really great, because like for us, the reason I do free audits is because if I can get into your account and I can show you that like one company basically had like wasted like $150,000 over the last 3 months, like just set it on fire. It like blew my mind. I was like, in my Loom video, like I was just like dumbfounded and talking to them about it. Like, I don't know, like I wanted to cry, like maybe that would have been overselling it. But like when you show them that like how much money they're losing just on like little things, they realize how much they don't actually know. And then at that point, it's not like, oh, let me fix these things and I'll do better. It's like, crap, I didn't know these things, and there's still so much more I don't know. Probably better just to hire someone that does know what they're doing. But we use a thought leadership ad for that, and it's like done really great. One thing I don't like about it, it's kind of frustrating, is that it doesn't show you follows generated from it. So like, I know, especially because if you run an engagement campaign, you get the little follow button in the top right. Like, I know I've gotten followers from people that have seen ads, but it doesn't show you the tracking on that. And the personal pages are not like the company pages where you can parse out paid followers from organic followers. So you don't have that level of granularity for them, but the cost is so, so low to run thought leadership ads. Just word of advice to anyone is just make sure you add a destination URL inside of your post, like after the 7 days or the week that you've had it, because then you can track clicks to the landing page on that post. But if you do it like at the first comment or something, or you don't have that on there, then you're missing opportunities to actually generate some traffic.
Yes. Good advice right there. Yeah, because a lot of people are missing that. Also, you mentioned one thing that's super interesting. It's kind of bogus the way they attribute clicks to thought leader ads. As you said, the see more button thing, it's just like, bad to have that. But you know what we thought of, and when we've done this before in ad accounts, I don't know what do you think about this method, but it's basically when you build up the retargeting audience from clicks of thought leader ads, or views for that matter, if it's video, whatever, you also get the people that clicked on see more and that were curious enough. And as you were mentioning, there might not be, it's not as strong of an intent as visiting the website, of course. But what you can do though is apply campaign manager filters on top of that retargeting audience to filter and trim down the traffic that might have come to that thought leader ad or clicked on that thought leader ad that is not within your IPC. And sure, you're still getting two different types of intent, but at least you know that you're matching, because you can get even, peers at your company, if it's big enough, that are clicking on your ad because they've been served, or like I've seen it before on ad accounts. So I don't know what you think about that. I'm sure there's a better way but I think that's just a quick patch to if you already kind of fucked, so to speak, with with that audience, you know?
Yeah. So you're saying you would say single image ad interactions and website visitors or company page visitors, and then maybe that's it. Or I would probably, like, what I would do sometimes, what I'll do is I'll be a little bit looser on my retargeting campaign filters. So like if my cold layer campaigns, if I'm doing job title, or I'm a little bit more stringent, let's say I'm doing function seniority, but I'm also including skill in there. In my retargeting layer, I might be a little bit more lax, because if they're still coming from the right types of companies, but they're someone a little bit more junior, but they visited the website, like, sure, why not? You know, why not stay in front of them? I think those audiences would still be captured, even if you didn't do the single image ad interaction, but you still did the website or company page visitors, and those people happen to interact with one of the thought leadership ads or view one of the thought leadership ads, but they got captured on one of those other criteria. That could still be good. The thing that sucks with the website visits is because it's cookie based, it's not going to be as rich as LinkedIn's first data. So yeah, I could see it both ways.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. What is you mentioned before, I think just minimally the ad fatigue and whatnot, but what is the most straightforward way to avoid ad fatigue?
So I have a client right now that I've worked with for, I don't know, probably going on 2 years, and I'm running the same ads in my cold layer that I've been running like for almost 2 years. And you're like, why? Well, because it ain't broke, right? So the old saying, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So just because like there's a thing called ad fatigue doesn't mean that you necessarily need to do that. Like it's situational. Like for me, I have the audience sliced up a few different ways. So I have like a target account audience, and then I have a native audience targeting different geographies, but the audience size is pretty large. And so like we're reaching different people, and people don't remember ads. Like even like your posts, right? Like I might post something, you might post something, and then like 2 months later, you're like, I want to post this again, but people are going to remember. No one remembers. Like
no one
remembers. They don't remember. They're looking at other stuff. I don't remember what I saw yesterday, right? No one remembers. So like post it again. It's the same thing for like the cold ad campaigns. I'd say this is more true for cold than it is for retargeting. But for cold, like if you have something that works, like you should have evergreen content running in your cold layer, because it's going to get more reactions and comments over time, and it's going to look better and better. It's like a fine wine. Like you don't want to keep swapping it out like over and over again. Like, no, like let it age, let it build up, but it needs to be evergreen content. So, you know, be a little forward thinking whenever you're deciding what content to run in your cold layer. The retargeting layer is a little bit different. It depends on what ranges that you set. So if I am running like a 30-day high intent audience, and let's say there's like 2 or 3 assets that I had in there because that's all I had for the time being, but my ad frequency for that campaign is like 15 or something, then I may want to add in a little bit more. Like I may want to add a little bit more variety to that audience instead of just hitting them over the head with the same ads like over and over and over and over and over again. So I may want to swap that out. The biggest thing to look for is a decline in performance. So if you have your retargeting layer, and let's say you have a CTR that's, I don't know, 0.8%, and it's kind of fluctuated between like 0.7 and 0.9 for the last 3 months. But then you notice that starts to drop down to like 0.6 or 0.5. You might go in and look at the audience and say, I can clean this up. You might go in and look at the assets to see if there's a certain asset there that's not performing, but you may need to come in and start refreshing your content. So the biggest sign is going to be when performance starts to, starts to diminish. But then also to kind of like common sense, like if you're showing someone the same ad over and over for like 90 days, like maybe show them something else too. Like don't just run lead gen forms in your cold and then more lead gen forms in your retargeting layer. Like try something else, run something different.
Right. Just common sense and thinking it from the demand side of things. Like put yourself, like imagine you're the one that's being served with all those ads, right? Like what would you do? Then comes easy. But How do you approach? You mentioned before that one of the main prerequisites or like characteristics of companies that could benefit the most from LinkedIn ads is if your audience is active on LinkedIn.
Yep.
How do you approach targeting if the audience isn't that active on LinkedIn? I'm sure you've got to mention Google, Meta, but when it comes to LinkedIn, how do you approach targeting when an audience isn't really that active? And if you have any case studies or examples that can illustrate this, that would be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. The good thing about marketing on LinkedIn or pretty much every channel is you only pay for the impressions that are shown. So let's say you have an audience that's like 20,000 people and they're not super active on there. Well, the ones that are active are going to get shown your content and you're only going to pay for those ones that are actually active. The challenge, it becomes a challenge when the company is expecting LinkedIn to stand on its own 2 feet and just perform for them. If your audience is not super active on LinkedIn, then it's not reasonable for you to expect LinkedIn to do all of the work for you. You're probably going to need to take an omni-channel approach. Maybe you're doing outbound, maybe you're doing Meta, you're doing Quora, Reddit, YouTube. Like you're going to do a few different things. LinkedIn can be part of that strategy, but it can't be expected to just be profitable all on its own. So this again kind of goes back to, expectations. And this happens quite a bit. Like somebody wants to target companies that are partners of ServiceNow, or someone wants to target companies that use this specific like technology. And there's only like 10,000 companies. And within those 10,000 companies, there's only this many decision makers. So they have this like really, really tiny, audience of people that they want to target. Not only is the strategy going to be different because it's harder to build a retargeting audience when you have a smaller like total addressable market. Like you can't do it in a traditional sense where you kind of waterfall them down. Like it's a little bit reverse, you flip it. It can't just run on its own. Like it can't be expected to just perform on its own. So like in those scenarios where like the people aren't really active on there, LinkedIn will be part of it. There's retargeting that will be part of this. Sometimes we'll also use like lists too. So if they're going to hit lists on other platforms, then I want to use those same lists here to have LinkedIn be part of that. But LinkedIn in that point is more supplemental instead of like the channel.
All of that, yeah. We mentioned this quite a bit already, I think, but if you can give a more comprehensive answer to this question is how companies are misusing their budgets on LinkedIn ads, and what would you say or recommend to those companies in order to have a more efficient budget allocation looking at 2024, most importantly?
Give that budget to me. No, just kidding. Or Will, right? give it to someone else. Buy me an Apple Vision Pro. Man, my best friend got one. And I want one so bad. Oh,
why?
It's just so cool. I like all Apple things. My best friend got his, and like he's telling me how awesome. Like he can just like place stuff like in his house, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, in my office, like I could have Campaign Manager here, I could have my feed here, I could have Basecamp and Slack, and I was like, man, I'm like Tony Stark, I'd be so much more productive.
yeah, for real.
But no, they don't have to do that. I wouldn't say no, but the way I see people misusing budget a lot for LinkedIn, like the technical side is one, like you're pretty much just setting money on fire at that point. And it's not just that, like you mentioned this before. I forgot what you said. You said like a second degree of something, but basically like where you're impacting.
Second order of consequence, yeah.
Second order of consequence, right? So like not only did you waste your budget on audience network targeting like bots or children who are doing accidental clicking on their parents' devices, not only did you not target the right audience because you negated any of the specificity you had with your targeting because you had audience expansion on looking for people with similar attributes. Not only did you do that, but you also sacrificed all of the important data you needed, like what cohorts in my audience are engaging? What assets do people actually like? And then your retargeting data, Like you've spent how many thousands or tens of thousands of dollars and you can't even use any of this data to start building retargeting audience. At least if you go into LinkedIn and you have the technical things done right, and let's say you suck, like you're terrible, like you have one ad running or two ads running, you have the wrong campaign objective, but so long as you have the technical things right and you're targeting the right audience, like we can still salvage some of that data and build out a retargeting layer for you and try to get something out of that, squeeze something out of that. But when you don't have those things in place, then like it's really, really hard. Another thing I see people do is like just too much focus on lead generation. Like just like it's all lead generation. Like the way I think about it is like, you just like, I don't know, like you meet someone, somewhere like you're part of a group or maybe like your church or something. And like every time you talk to them, you ask them out on a date, but you never ask them how their day is. You never tell them like, you know, what you did this weekend. Like the only thing you talk about is, hey, can we go on a date? Hey, can we go on a date? Hey, can we go on a date? Like, hey, hi, can we go on a date? Like people are going to get tired of that eventually. Like that can't be everything that you do. So I would say like, you know, second to the misconfiguration, like that's the other biggest one. Just so much money on lead generation and nothing for no hi, no hello, no how's your day, none of that content.
Stop harassing people with your lead gen forms.
Yes, please.
Man, I've been taking a look at companies and they're taking this out in February, unfortunately, but there's a feature I'm sure you know already in company posts. You can look at their ads and within the ads library too, right? But it's just astonishing, man. Like it's hard to get a thought leader ad out there in the wild. Like, it's not, and I'm surprised by it because it's just like the difference in cost and performance and CTO, everything is just wild. Let's just run the white paper from 2019 because
still good.
X account, still good, right? Like, and people are gonna love it. Like, either way,
it's that attribution. They want to be able to track it. Like, even if it's terrible. Like, even if they can say we generated 50 MQLs and we can track it, like for some reason that gives them the warm and fuzzies. Like I don't get it.
And you know what? I was talking about this the other day with Liam Moroney. I'm sure you're familiar. Mm-hmm. I interviewed him for the podcast, and we were talking about this. It's like it's because it's so deeply ingrained the way it operates and the way marketing is gold and the metrics around they need to report back every quarter that it's gonna be hard to move away from that. It's not that in corporations, like it's just so deeply ingrained. You're not gonna change it one day to another. And we were talking about how on LinkedIn there's somewhat of an echo chamber of people talking about, sure, there's too much spent on lead generation and whatnot, and we need to be more human and we need to nurture and we need to, yes, perfect, of course, but gotta bear in mind also that that's kind of a minority that's talking about that, right? Like, although as much as we are surrounded by it every day, there's deep models that have been or playbooks or whatever you want to call it that have been used for probably more than a decade, right, at this point, and that are not going to change overnight, which is it's whatever. I mean, it's someone said it in an interview, like, the world had a 2-week freak out with GPT-4 and now people are saying like, why is it so slow, right? Well, it's the same thing with lead gen forms. I think it's just going to take a while for people to realize it. And I mean, if companies need to waste like 5 million in ad spend throughout the next 12 quarters, then so be it, right? Like I wouldn't like that, of course.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's like, if it takes that.
This is actually a good thing. So I was thinking about this the other day and I was like, you know what? It's actually not bad. Like, it's actually really good that companies are heavy handed with lead gen form. It's really good that LinkedIn has audience expansion and audience network turned on by default. And that sounds like kind of negative, but like that means that like we have an advantage over people that don't know not to do those things. Because imagine if everyone did the right thing. Let's say everyone turned it off, everyone turned off audience network, everyone was running a mix. Marketing would be way harder because now everybody was doing. It's like when I went to Miami, we did a conference. We went to Miami, like everybody's in shape there. Like I'm in San Antonio, right? And like we're like, a bigger city. So like here I feel pretty good. Over there, I felt like gordito. Like I was like, oh my God, like I am an ugly person. Like everyone there is just like, so like, it's kind of like that, right? Like it's it's like, people are making these mistakes. It's like the people that aren't making those mistakes have an advantage. So it's not necessarily like, bad, but yeah, like companies shouldn't be doing that.
Right. No,
Yeah.
for sure.
Selfishly, it's not
bad. Exactly.
Yeah,
No, I'm with you
yeah.
on that one, of course. But it's
Yeah.
just, okay, so last question that I got for you. How to know when to rotate ads evenly or schedule them? Like just the whole debate around ads rotation, and most importantly, how LinkedIn doesn't allow you to do it as properly as we would love to, right?
Yeah.
Because optimizing for performance, you got to play around with it a lot in order to find the perfect combination. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So like, it's funny. I think it was last year we went to Utah and we actually met AJ Wilcox. So we had lunch, we had dinner together. So it was pretty cool. Really, really admire AJ, like him a lot. We got into not like a little bit of like a debate on this because his stance is like you should never do it, rotate ads evenly, because the cost, like it's not cost effective. My stance on it is I'm less concerned about the cost and more about the user experience. So that's going back to like the ad fatigue question. If I have a campaign running in my retargeting layer where I have a pretty small retargeting audience, let's say my ad frequency is above 10 and maybe I have 5 or 6 assets in there, then I don't want the best performing ad being the only ad that those people see over the course of that month. Like I want them to be exposed to other content, and some content is not really designed for any type of action. Like I don't need you to do anything. Like, hey, here's this social proof that talks about a client testimonial where they said, such and such company helped me achieve like X percentage results. Like, I don't need you to do anything with that. So performance isn't going to be great for that ad because I'm not asking you to do anything for it. But LinkedIn is going to take that as, oh, this ad sucks, let's not give it budget if I have it as optimized for performance. But for me, I want that content for in-feed consumption. So I don't really care so much about the clicks. I want it to be seen. So in those scenarios, that's where I'll decide to use rotate ads evenly. The only caveat to that is that you have to be pretty on top of killing anything that like is really, really like an outlier. So like if something is just getting nothing, like no engagement, not even just like clicks, but like even engagement at all, then I probably don't want to run that ad. And normally it wouldn't get any budget because LinkedIn would just give budget to the ones that were performing. But in that scenario where I'm taking over and I'm not letting LinkedIn have the wheel, I need to go in and make sure that I'm pausing those.
100%. And I love how you made that point. Like you want in-feed consumption, so you got to put it in there, even though LinkedIn is going to tell you that is an underperforming ad and it won't want to serve it if you're optimizing for performance, right? Because it's the point. And I think, look, you made such a great point before where you were talking about ACVs and expectations and whatnot. Like if you're selling a $500,000 product or whatever, something that's in the 5-6 figures a year contract in software or whatever for enterprise, and you're spending just low 5 figures a month on LinkedIn, you better be willing to run LinkedIn ads for years if you want to see impact in pipeline that's actually going to move the needle, right? And so I think part of the, again, second order of consequence to that statement is to understand that if you want big actions to be taken by your target market from your ads, there's going to be a suite of ads that need to be like run in terms of in-feed consumption or just purely for in-feed consumption so that they have the awareness that's needed in order to take that big action or big ask that you're making, which is sign up for this demo that is going to put you in a 6-call framework in which we're going to have to talk to your buying committee and all of that stuff, right? Like, and people just don't get that. They want to live in the world in which, no, I just run my thing and because the only thing I want from them is a click, so might as well just ask for it, right? And if I ask enough, they'll say yes to the date, right? And it doesn't work like that. And whoever has struggled with girls know this too. Like it's just you're not gonna and just with people, like you wouldn't get to meet someone if the only thing you do is just ask for it over and over again. You got to give them reasons. You got to
be funny. You got to show them you're smart. You got to win them over. Bring them witty. Flowers. Yeah, be witty. Like. Maybe we should just do that and be like, hey, like dating, it's a lot like dating, right? If you're not doing well in your love life, you're probably not going to do well with LinkedIn ads. No, that probably wouldn't work. Yeah.
I'm gonna use that as the headline for the pod.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No,
Anything else you want to chat about?
Sure. No, I think we're good. But yeah, it's been a pleasure, JD. If anyone wants to look you up on LinkedIn or just know more about your stuff and whatnot, what would you tell them?
Yeah, just look me up, JD Garcia, on LinkedIn. All my info's there. Give me a follow or shoot me a DM if you have any questions. Happy to help.
Yep. Yeah, contact JD if you want an audit as well, a free audit for LinkedIn ads, or if you need video, you already know where we at. But yeah, man, it's been a pleasure. I hope to have you soon back. And yeah, we'll stay in touch.
All right. Thanks, Will.
Thank you for listening to the Founder Video Podcast with Will Martin, and we'll see you on the next episode.